Maybe you've heard this piece in a concert hall, or more likely, you've heard it in the background of a car commercial. This piece goes on for another 3 or 4 minutes, just like this. The rhythm is the same. The harmony is straightforward, building in tension and then release. But what does the music mean? There's a difference between when I play my viola and when I make music. Reading music on the page is just like data entry. I play in time and in tune at the right time. This is correct based on what's written on the page, but it lacks feeling, creativity. I'm not interested in just this musical data entry. I want to tell musical stories. And my desire to tell musical stories has led me to one question. How can I live in my creativity more often when I practice and perform? Perhaps you've been asking yourself similar questions. Questions like, how can I be more creative in my job? Or, how can I generate a great idea? Great ideas don't usually reveal themselves when we ask. Instead, they show up when we least expect them. When we're in the shower, when we're driving, walking the dog, cooking dinner. All the times when we're not ready for them and we don't have a pen. I decided that I was tired of waiting for my creativity to choose when it showed up. Instead, I wanted to seek out my creativity, get to know it on my own terms, befriend it, sit down and regularly have a conversation with it over coffee. So I decided to go on a quest to become a creativity detective. My favorite detective, and arguably the most famous detective in fiction, is Sherlock Holmes. Inspired by Sherlock, I decided to put my detective cap on, and in the purpose of solving the case of my hidden creativity. I started by interviewing musicians, and then I widened my pool, and I interviewed my fellow creatives. I often collaborate with artists outside of music, and in interviewing them, I realized that I didn't quite understand their creative process. So, I needed to investigate. While a doctoral student at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, I had the luxury of an array of art classes. So I begged and I bartered with professors to allow me to observe classes in ceramics, painting, drawing, comics, glass blowing, ballet, modern dance, choreography, acting, film, and even stage combat. What I gained from these classes was more than being a fly on the wall or a few really cool comics of me practicing, a fantastic barter. What I noticed was after I observed, my practice was different. After I observed dancers, my body seemed more connected and my bow more fluid when I played. After I observed visual artists, instead of seeing musical notes in my head, I saw oranges and melting yellows. I played sunrises instead of just notes. theater observations caused me to imagine my scene, develop my characters, and pinpoint words of emotion in my music. Just like Sherlock, you could say I put on disguises of other artists when I practiced. Practicing this way was super fun, and it led me to develop a practice method for myself that I call creative musician. I came up with 9 different ways that I could practice my musical expression by exploring basic concepts in dance, theater, and visual art. Although each art form is really different, I noticed that my method, the process, was always the same 3 steps. First, I'd immerse myself in an art form without my instrument. Then I made connections between that art form and my music, and I practiced in both. Lastly, I returned to my music with simply the memory of my art experience in mind, present with me as I played. To give you a sample of this process, I'll relate each art form to Bach's G major prelude. For theater, I started by asking myself tons of questions about my scene and my character in my music. Was I inside? Outside? What time of day was it? Where? What season was it? What time? Was I alone? Was I with someone else? What age was I? What happened in my scene? So without my instrument, I explored my imagination in my music, and I came up with some answers. For this music, I'm outside. It's sunset in fall, a little brisk in the air, and I find myself sitting on a rock in the forest, and the music to me sounds like water, so I'm sitting next to a stream. I decide that I'm male, and I'm in my late teens, early 20s, and I'm not alone. I'm sitting next to someone who I deeply care for, but I'm afraid to share my feelings. There's great desire and lust, as well as doubt and fear, and so starts a great love story. So I went to my music, and I decided, where did these emotions happen for my character? I start off hearing the stream with love in my heart and comfort. Then I have a slight yearn and pull towards my beloved. Then greater desire. And then I back off. I lose my nerve. I have a little bit more hope after this. And when you hear these notes, that is my heart fluttering. I get greater lust and excitement, and then once again, I lose my nerve. And this time with greater doubt, and that's why the music is lower. I finally get a little bit more determination, and at the end, I decide that I'm going to share my heart. See if you can follow along in the music as I play, and as my emotions of my character change. Thank you. For visual art, I thought of color. And out of all the colors in the rainbow, this music reminded me of blues and purples, a twinge of rosy pink for my heart, and gray for my doubt, my fear. I went to my music, and I colored. And I noticed that as my music intensified, so did the heaviness of my colored pencil. For dance, without my instrument, I moved throughout the room, exploring a variety of gestures with my body. I first made this choreography. And then I went to my music, and I decided where my right foot or my left foot went, when I turned or when I slid. And then I made this map of my choreography. I start off in the back of the room, and as my music intensifies, so does my distance to my audience. When I have doubt, I back off, I move back. When you hear my heart flutter, my feet pivot. And when the music goes lower, so does my body. I end open, ready to share my heart with my audience. As you saw, practicing this way didn't just give me one way to play this music. It gave me access to my creativity, where I found many ideas on how to play this music. Naturally, I evolved from creativity detective to creativity researcher. I knew this process worked for me, but could it work for other musicians? So I set up an experiment of instrumental musicians, and I asked them to select a portion of music they were practicing. First, they played a control of their music. Second, they selected an art form that they were most interested in exploring. And then third, they practiced with an art form they were least interested in. So, drum roll. Thank you. What happened? The results showed that 100% of these musicians had an increase in their ability to be musically expressive after using the method. 100% of them also indicated noticeable increases in their ability to be imaginative after using this method, and heightened levels of engagement and focus when playing. For more than 50% of these musicians, the art form they were least interested in exploring had a greater effect on their ability to be musically expressive. This is strange. Usually, we expect that something we know or like will be better at. But this result showed the opposite. You saw me dance. My dancing did not need to be good. It simply needed to give me access to my creativity so that my music can be good. These musicians were just like me. They were having fun practicing this way. When practicing, they engaged in the true word, play. Studies, specifically the work of psychiatrist and clinical researcher Dr. Stuart Brown, show that play is an essential component to the creative process. A few minutes of play can reinvigorate our work, reinvigorate our relationships, reinvigorate our lives. Now, I know that everyone here is not going to become a creative musician, but I would argue that many of you might be interested in generating a great idea or deem yourself a creative person. And if that's you, I suggest you try two things. First, look outside your field. Try my process. First, immerse yourself in a field outside your own and get to know it. Then, make connections between another field and your own. Live in both. And then lastly, embrace this memory when you return to your work. Keep it present. Second thing to try is play. Be ridiculous. Put on disguises. Try something completely off the wall and improbable. Often it's the improbable that makes way for the possible. Artists do not have a patent on creativity. We all need creativity. Creativity helps us solve problems, communicate with others, and generate ideas. The more we can relate to others whom we believe are different, the more ideas we can generate. In the beautiful words of Maya Angelou, you can't use up creativity. The more you use, the more you have.